the emperor of mankind, bred and conditioned mankind into believing there was no such thing as the divine. He sought to create a galaxy ruled by logic and the power of science. Well, you can guess how that turned out. In the grimdark universe of Warhammer 40k, there exists numerous beings of immense powers, capable of dominating and bending the laws of reality to their very whims. Although they're held at bay by our golden boy, who's been on a constant brain energy diet ever since he was put on the golden throne by his beloved bald son Horus. These beings, collectively known as the Chaos Gods of the Warhammer universe, have proven to be a very tough pain in the posterior. The Warp. The Warhammer universe is a rich tapestry of conflict, with chaos standing as one of the most defining forces. Chaos is the embodiment of mortal flaws, desires, and emotions, given form through the warp. But what exactly is a warp? The warp is the lifeblood of the Warhammer universe, shaping its gods, demons, and stories, a psychic dimension of raw potential and unrestrained power. To fully understand how chaos came to be, we must go back to the very beginning, to the time when there was war in the heavens. War in heaven. The war in heaven began millions of years ago, long before humanity or the Imperium existed. The Old Ones, an ancient and advanced race, were masters of the warp and had unparalleled control over the cosmos. The Necrontyr were a mortal race plagued by short lifespans and bitterness toward the Old Ones for their immortality and power. This envy drove them to wage war against the Old Ones, a conflict they were bound to lose due to the Old Ones' superior technology and their powerful psychic abilities. Desperate for an edge, the Necrontyr discovered the Tzeentch, godlike star-eating entities of immense power, and forged alliances with them, and so the plot thickens. The Necrontyrs sacrifice their mortal forms to the Tzeentch, becoming the Necrons, immortal and soulless warriors. With the Tzeentch's power, the Necrons turn the tide of war, slaughtering the Old Ones and devastating their empire. The Old Ones created new species, the Eldar, Krork, and others, to fight the Necrons. However, the psychic energies unleashed in the war destabilized the warp, leading to the birth of the Chaos Gods. The galaxy became a tumultuous and unstable place, with the warp's corruption spreading. Eventually, the Necrons betrayed the Tzeentch, shattering them into shards to prevent their dominion. The Necrons retreated into stasis tombs, leaving the galaxy to recover from the devastation. The collapse of the Old Ones' warp gates led to the first Chaos incursion, flooding the world with chaos energy. The lizard men and their ancient races fought to preserve what remained, but much of the Old Ones' civilization was lost. The gods of chaos, newly empowered, became dominant forces in the world. The Old Ones disappeared, leaving their creations to fend for themselves against chaos. The birth of the Chaos Gods. The birth of chaos signified and truly reflected the darkest aspects of sentient existence, giving form to the emotions and ambitions of mortals. At the heart of chaos are its gods, malevolent beings who thrive on the emotions of mortals and twist the fabric of reality to suit their inscrutable goals. These entities, known as the Ruinous Powers, are Khorne, Tzeentch, Nurgle, and Slaanesh. Alongside the big four are lesser gods you've probably never heard of, like Malal, Hashut, and the Horned Rat, who further enrich the narrative. This exploration delves into their essence, their worshippers, and the impact on the Warhammer universe. The Chaos Gods were not always present in the war. They could be counted as relatively recent creations in relation to the existence of the ancient races, of course, born from the collective emotions and psychic energy of mortal beings. Each god represents a particular aspect of sentient experience, amplified and twisted to extremes. Their birth shaped the nature of the warp and gave rise to its current state. Khorne, who was the first Chaos God to awaken, a being born from the violence and bloodshed that spread as civilizations began to war with one another. Every act of murder, every battle fought in anger, fed the nascent Khorne until he fully emerged as a blood god. His rise marked the beginning of endless cycles of warfare across the galaxy, and then followed Tzeentch. Tzeentch arose from the desire for power, the pursuit of knowledge, and the ambition of mortals to control their destiny. As civilizations advanced and sought to dominate their surroundings, their collective ambition and need for change gave birth to Tzeentch. Grandfather Nurgle came next. Born of despair and fear, Nurgle's birth coincided with the spread of disease, famine, and despair across the galaxy. As mortals faced inevitable suffering and the fear of death, their emotions coalesced into the Plague Father. Nurgle embodies the paradox of finding comfort in decay, offering his gifts of disease and corruption as a means of survival. And then there's Slaneesh, born of excess and decadence. I can't exactly believe he's the wildest, but he was born from psychic release from orgies by literal space elves. Slaneesh was the last of the 4 primary chaos gods to be born. His creation was a direct result of the decadence and hubris of the Eldari civilization. The Eldari's pursuit of perfection and hedonistic excesses generated immense psychic energy, which ultimately coalesced into Slaanesh. His birth shattered the Eldari Empire and created the Eye of Terror, a massive warp rift that continues to scar the galaxy. With his birth, everything got turned over its head. Of course, the warp is supermassive, but that doesn't mean the Chaos Gods are content with just settling for small, or rather medium pieces of the pie. Why settle for one corner when you can just kill your warp siblings and rule it all? The Chaos Gods are not united. They are locked in an eternal struggle known as the Great Game. Each god seeks to dominate the others and establish their supremacy within the warp. The rivalry manifests as conflicts between their mortal and demonic followers, ensuring that chaos is as self-destructive as it's threatening to the galaxy. The Great Game also reflects the balance of mortal emotions. For instance, during times of war, Khorne's power grows, while in periods of decadence, Slaneesh gains influence. This dynamic ensures that the Chaos Gods are in constant flux, mirroring the ever-changing nature of the warp. And since the Emperor, a being of great psychic might, knew how things were in the warp, he tried his hardest to curb their influences by making everyone atheists, and waging war against all the Xeno, which would only empower Khorne if you ask me, but who cares? It's Warhammer. It wouldn't be what it is without the warring and a lot of hammering too. Now, let's move on. Who are these Chaos Gods? Major or lesser, and what exactly is it that they do? The major Chaos Gods. Number 1, Khorne, the Blood God. Khorne is a god of war, bloodshed, and martial honor. His presence is felt whenever there is violence, from the smallest skirmish to the grandest battles. Khorne's domain is a crimson wasteland where rivers of blood flow endlessly and mountains of skulls rise in tribute to his unquenchable thirst for slaughter. The most infamous chant of Khorne's worshippers is "Blood for the Blood God, skulls for the Skull Throne." This rallying cry reverberates across battlefields, inspiring berserk fury in his followers. Rituals dedicated to Khorne often involve gladiatorial combat, where warriors fight to the death to honor their god. The victors offer the skulls of their foes to Khorne's throne, a grotesque monument to his dominion. What sort of god wouldn't have followers? Khorne's followers are united by their thirst for combat and bloodshed. They reject sorcery as cowardly, instead placing their faith in physical strength and martial prowess, which surely tells you he doesn't like his warped siblings that embodies all that. You want straight, brutal, bone-chilling bouts of violence? Then Khorne's your guy. Khorne's demons are embodiments of his savage will, existing solely to wage eternal war. Followers of Khorne. The Bloodletters are the rank-and-file soldiers of Khorne's demonic legions. They are lean, red-skinned humanoids with horned heads and wielding hell-forged swords. The Bloodletters are fanatically loyal, serving as the foot soldiers of the Blood God. raising hell in his name. The Fleshhounds are a psyker's worst nightmare. They are demonic hunting beasts that track down prey with supernatural precision. These babies are large, canine-like creatures with thick scales and fiery breath. Like I said, they are a psyker's worst nightmare because they are immune to magic and any psychic attack due to their collar of Khorne. They are relentless in pursuing those marked by Khorne. The next are Bloodthirsters, great demons of Khorne, and some of his most powerful servants. These demons are towering monstrosities with muscular forms, leathery wings, and weapons like massive axes and whips. They are savage generals of Khorne's legions, leading armies with unmatched ferocity. And then there's the Juggernauts, massive, blood-hardened beasts mostly used as mounts by bloodletters and mortal champion, a fusion of brass and flesh, resembling a mechanical bull or rhino. The skull cannons and blood thrones are tools of war, utilized by these demons to bring terror to every enemy they encounter. Skull Cannon is a demonic war engine that fires explosive shells of molten skulls, while the Blood Throne is a mobile altar pulled by Juggernauts, where Khorne's heralds direct the slaughter. His roster doesn't only consist of monstrosities, he has a retinue of mortal devotees, although their images have also been warped. They include warlords, berserkers, and of course, an entire Space Marine legion made up of the angriest dudes ever, the World Eaters, whose warriors are driven mad by the butcher's nails implanted in their brains. There are special mortals the god deigns to pay special attention to, the champions and demon princes. The most infamous champion of Khorne is Khorne the Betrayer, a chaos space marine of unparalleled ferocity. Khorne's name is synonymous with slaughter, and his loyalty to Khorne is unwavering. Those who earn the blood god's favor may ascend to demon princes, immortal beings who embody Khorne's wrath. One of such beings is Angron, demon prince of Khorne. Angron was a slave gladiator on Nuceria before the Emperor of Mankind found him, a damaged and broken man to stand with his fellow gladiators in a hopeless battle against his oppressors, who had implanted the Butcher's Nails, a device that heightened rage while suppressing reason, made him a creature of pure anger and bloodlust. The Emperor just had to whisk him away then, condemning his best mates to die. You can be rest assured he held a grudge about that for millennia. After joining the Emperor, Angron resented his father for not saving his fellow gladiators. This resentment festered and grew. During the Horus Heresy, Horus promised him a path to unrestrained slaughter, and Angron, not one to give up a very good chance to bash heads, embraced chaos fully. His legion followed, becoming the infamous World Eaters. Angron's ceaseless dedication to violence and bloodshed pleased Khorne. After the Siege of Terra, Angron was rewarded by Khorne, ascending as a demon prince. He became an avatar of carnage, leading massive armies of bloodletters and spreading war across the galaxy. Khorne's influence has truly only been on the rise, especially since the Chaos Gods feed on emotions. They don't exactly require worship directly. During the Horus Heresy, his allure of power and bloodshed corrupted the World Eaters and other legions. Entire civilizations have been reduced to rubble as they succumb to the cycle of violence Khorne demands. His insatiable hunger for war ensures that the galaxy remains in constant turmoil, and he can't stop. He won't stop until all civility is lost and worlds are covered in red. Number 2. Tzeentch, the Changer of Ways. Tzeentch is a god of magic, change, and ambition. He represents the desire for knowledge and the pursuit of power, as well as the ever-shifting nature of fate. Tzeentch's realm is a kaleidoscope maze of impossible geometries and shifting realities, reflecting his inscrutable nature. The worshippers of Tzeentch recite arcane incantations and conduct intricate rituals to manipulate the warp and peer into the future. These rites often involve the sacrifice of secrets or forbidden knowledge, offered as a token of loyalty to the Master of Fates. Tzeentch attracts scholars, sorcerers, and those who seek to reshape their destinies. His mortal followers are often ambitious individuals willing to risk everything for power. The Thousand Suns Legion, cursed by their reliance on sorcery, is one of Tzeentch's most devoted factions. Tzeentch's legions are made up of the most powerful, eerie, and magical entities, each serving his purpose by helping their god spread chaos. Followers of Tzeentch. The first unit is the Lesser Demons, each with 3 quite distinctive about them. The Pink Horns are eager, cackling demons of magic, casting sorcerous fire across the battlefield. Upon death, they split into Blue Horrors, and then Brimstone Horrors. The Blue Horrors are the embittered and angry remains of Pink Horrors, smaller but still dangerous. They manifest after the death of their parent Pink Horror. And the Brimstone Horrors, the smallest and weakest of Tzeentch's demons, fiery little sparks of anger that swarm enemies in chaotic furies. His greater demons are the Lords of Change, majestic, bird-like demons of immense magical power. They command the battlefield with devastating spells and uncanny foresight. His legion wouldn't be complete without his war beasts and constructs for warfare. For firepower, there's the Flamers of Tzeentch, demon capable of tossing magical fire, lighting up the entire battlefield, and the Screamers of Tzeentch, some manta ray-like demons that glide through the air, slicing foes with razor-sharp edges. Burning chariots are ridden by these horrors and powered by flamers. These magical constructs rain destruction from above, granting them superiority in the aerospace. His champion is Ahriman, the exiled sorcerer of the Thousand Suns, who serves as one of Tzeentch's most notable champions. In an attempt to help his warp-touched Legion brothers, Ahriman made a very terrible mistake that left most of them trapped in their suits of armors. This led to his exile and his eventual departure quest to undo the curse that was coined the Rubric of Ahriman. Those who demonstrate mastery of manipulation and magic may be elevated to Demon Prince status, wielding unimaginable power. Who else could take that spot if not another traitorous son of the Emperor? Magnus was a brilliant sorcerer and a seeker of forbidden knowledge. His thirst for understanding made him a perfect target for Tzeentch. Despite getting shunned and hated by his brothers for gifts that had been specifically engineered into the same Emperor who refused to come to his aid when he needed vindication, Magnus remained devoted to the Emperor. He had even tried to save his brother Primarch, Horus, from corruption while he was in the temple on Davin's moon. When it failed, Magnus sought to warn the Emperor about Horus, but shattered the Emperor's psychic wards in doing so. This act condemned the Thousand Suns as traitors, and he had the relentless wolves sent after him. In desperation, Magnus turned to Tzeentch to save his legion. In return, he fully pledged himself to chaos. In recognition of his talent as a true sorcerer of the peak, Tzeentch rewarded Magnus with demonhood, transforming him into a towering, winged sorcerer. Magnus continues to manipulate the galaxy, weaving complex schemes for his patron. Tzeentch's machinations drive many of the galaxy's most pivotal events. From the corruption of the Thousand Suns to the subtle manipulation of mortal leaders, his influence is woven into the fabric of the Warhammer universe. Number 3. Nurgle, the Plague Father. Grandfather Nurgle, the Lord of Decay, embodies disease, despair, and the acceptance of mortality. Paradoxically, he is also associated with resilience and the joy of survival against all odds. His realm is a festering garden, teeming with life twisted and extremely weird. Nurgle's followers have been known to chant dirges celebrating decay and the inevitability of death, and perpetuate rituals that involve the deliberate spreading of plagues and the creation of grotesque gifts of infection to honor their god. They make attempts to make new toxins, new plagues, which they can, of course, dedicate to their god, who in turn blesses them with more diseases. Some would argue that Nurgle is the nicest of the ruinous powers. Most even get lulled into his service, seeking mercy and protection for death. but the bodies he's left in his wake and the nasty state the body of his followers are in says otherwise. The Followers of Nurgle. The Followers of Nurgle, such as the Death Guard Legion, embrace disease as a blessing. They believe that through corruption, they achieve a twisted form of immortality. Many of Nurgle's devotees are grotesquely mutated, but possess incredible resilience. I wouldn't want to say it, but in a way, they are actually somewhat of the most chaotic of all, especially with how goofy they can be. The Great Unclean Ones are massive, bloated demons that serve as Nurgle's generals. They embody the decaying vitality of their master, spreading disease and corruption with a grotesque yet jovial demeanor. Despite their horrifying appearance, they exude a fatherly affection for their children. The Plague Bearers, also known as Nurgle's Tallymen, these one-eyed, pox-ridden demons are relentless and methodical. They count and record every disease and death, ensuring the cycle of rot and rebirth remains intact. Their monotone droning makes them eerily solemn. There's the Nurglings, too. Mischievous little buggers the lot. These tiny, bloated creatures are born from the sores and pustules of great unclean ones. Nurglings are chaotic, gleeful, and thrive in spreading filth wherever they go. Their childish laughter and playful antics mask their deadly infectious touch. The beasts of Nurgle are slug-like monstrosities with tentacles and oozing bodies. The beasts of Nurgle are paradoxically friendly and curious. They see enemies as potential playmates, eagerly approaching them to play, which inevitably leads to their victims' grisly demise. The Poxwalkers are the mindless, shambling undead cursed by Nurgle. Once mortal, they are now carriers of virulent diseases, spreading rot and infection wherever they wander. Their groaning and shuffling make them harbingers of despair. Riding atop giant disease-ridden flies are the plague drones. These demons are the cavalry of Nurgle's forces. Their buzzing wings and dripping ichor make them terrifying sights on the battlefield, capable of delivering death from above. The Spoilpox Scriveners are extremely special plague bearers with an obsessive focus on bookkeeping. They maintain Nurgle's ledgers and file his taxes. Okay, he doesn't pay taxes, but these monsters actually inspire efficiency and zeal among their brethren, ensuring every disease and death is meticulously accounted for. The Sloppity Bile Pipers, moving on from the weird name, are demonic musicians whose revolting songs inspire Nurgle's forces and spread chaos among the enemy. They play instruments made from entrails and pus-filled sacks, creating tunes of despair and corruption. Horticulus Slimaxus is Nurgle's chief gardener. This demon cultivates the gardens of rot. Riding a massive slug beast, he spreads fungal growths and corrupts nature to better serve as master's vision of pestilent beauty. Nurgle's champions and demon prince are Typhus, herald of Nurgle, and master of the Death Guard's plague fleet, is one of Nurgle's most notorious champions. His unwavering dedication to spreading plagues has earned him great favor. Those who prove themselves may ascend as demon princes, becoming immortal embodiments of Nurgle's gifts. Mortarion was raised in a toxic world, where he developed an affinity for poison and death. His grim outlook and hatred for weakness made him susceptible to Nurgle's influence. During the Horus Heresy, the Death Guard fleet became trapped in the warp. Stricken by a terrible plague, Mortarion made a desperate pact with Nurgle to save his legion. Mortarion accepted Nurgle's gifts, transforming himself and his legion into diseased, plague-ridden monstrosities. Mortarion became Nurgle's favored champion and was elevated to Demon Prince status. He now rules over a realm in the warp known as the Plague Planet, spreading Nurgle's plagues throughout the galaxy. Nurgle's influence is evident in the corruption of entire worlds. Planets consumed by his plagues are transformed into festering wastelands, their populations enslaved to the cycle of life and death. The best understand how twisted and cunning Nurgle is. In the Death Guard novel series, details are drawn out to show Mortarion's betrayal of the Emperor and his eventual embrace of Nurgle. The Death Guard Legion would immediately become the harbingers of pestilence, and their actions during the Horus Heresy were marked by an unrelenting spread of disease and decay across countless worlds. Number 4. Slaanesh, the Dark Prince. The worst of them all, Slaanesh, the god of excess and perfection, was born from decadence of the Aldari. His realm is one of eternal pleasure, where every sensation is amplified to its peak. Worship of Slaanesh involves hedonistic celebrations, extreme sensory experiences, and the pursuit of perfection in all things. Followers often recite seductive invocations and offer extravagant displays of devotion. If any mortal were to fall prey, he could have you eating your best friend within a week. He's all about that sadism. Followers of Slaanesh. About his followers, Slaanesh attracts artists, warriors, and anyone who seeks to transcend mortal limits. The Emperor's Children Legion, driven by the pursuit of perfection, serves as his most devoted mortal followers. But, as is expected of the god of excess, Slaanesh has a very huge following. Keepers of secrets are greater demons of Slaanesh, and the epitome of his power. These beings are tall, lithe, and androgynous, exuding an aura of overwhelming allure and dread. They manipulate their enemies with a mix of seductive whispers and brutal strength, representing mastery over both temptation and violence. Demonettes, Slaanesh's most numerous servants. Demonettes are swift and deadly warriors, with an otherworldly beauty that hides their deadly intent. Their half-human, half-insect appearance and clawed hands make them vicious fighters, while their charm mesmerizes their foes. Seekers of Slaanesh are mounted warriors that ride serpentine creatures called Steeds of Slaanesh. These fast and agile cavalry units embody speed and pursuit, representing Slaanesh's hunger for unending pleasure and excitement. Seekers are relentless in chasing their prey. Fiends of Slaanesh are monstrous, multi-limbed creatures that combine beauty and horror in equal measure. Fiends are both alluring and grotesque, exuding pheromones that overwhelm their enemies' senses. They are agile, swift, and capable of disorienting foes in combat. Hellflayers are chariots of Slaanesh, bristling with blades, ridden by demonettes who delight in mowing down their foes. Hellflayers epitomize the blend of beauty and brutality, spreading carnage in the name of their god. Exalted chariots are simply larger, more powerful versions of the Hellflayer. They are massive war machines adorned with blades and driven by Slaanesh's demons. They devastate entire formations of enemies, leaving trails of ecstasy and destruction. The Mask of Slaanesh is a unique demon who once offended Slaanesh and was cursed to dance eternally. The mask uses hypnotic movements to beguile and confuse its enemies, turning battles into deadly performances. Silesk, the Vengeful Allegiance. A powerful pair of demons. Sil, a towering demon prince, and Esk, a demonette, that fight together as one. They represent the union of ambition and loyalty, embodying Slaanesh's ideals of perfection and synergy. Infernal and Raptress, a musician of Slaanesh who carries an infernal harp made from the screaming sinews of the damned. Her melodies spread despair and euphoria, driving allies to greater heights of battle and enemies to distraction or madness. Slaanesh has definitely got the most hated champions of all. Lucius the Eternal, a champion of Slaanesh, is famed for his vanity and martial skill. Those who please Slaanesh with acts of extreme devotion may ascend to demon princes, living embodiments of excess. Trying to be the best there ever could be, Fulgrim became obsessed with perfection, seeking to elevate his legion to the epitome of beauty and martial prowess. They even had the gall to add the Emperor's name to their legion, a privilege many envied. This obsession with perfection made him vulnerable to Slaanesh's whispers. After recovering a demon-possessed blade, Fulgrim's mind was slowly corrupted. He began indulging in excess, viewing it as a path to artistic and physical perfection. And during the heresy, he reached a point of no return when he struck and killed his brother, Ferrus Manus, the closest to him in a duel. This act shattered his humanity and marked his full submission to Slaanesh. Completely shattered and left as a husk of his former glorious self, the traitor, Fulgrim's total devotion to excess and hedonism delighted Slaanesh, who elevated him to demonhood. As a demon prince, Fulgrim takes the form of a serpentine, multi-armed creature of beauty and terror, reveling in decadence and destruction. It should be noted that Slaanesh's birth caused the catastrophic fall of the Aldari, shattering their civilization and creating the Eye of Terror. This influence continues to corrupt mortals, drawing them into the spiral of decadence and destruction. Now, forget about those big sickos. It's time to talk about the lesser-known Chaos Gods. These beings are of little importance, yet a few of them are quite pivotal. Some have even sparked debates, since Warhammer fans aren't sure if they are part of the canon. However, these minor gods all act as agents of chaos. Malal, the god of anarchy and destruction. First up, Malal, the chaos god of anarchy, destruction, and nihilism, represents rebellion against even chaos itself. While he is not widely recognized or as powerful as the major chaos gods, Malal's worship has existed in the background of the Warhammer lore, particularly in older editions of the Warhammer Fantasy and Warhammer 40k setting. Malal's followers are anarchists, extremists, and those who believe in total chaos. They are driven by a desire to tear down all existing powers, including the powers of chaos itself. Rituals of Malal often involve acts of rebellion, defiance, and self-sacrifice, representing the destruction of order, even within chaos. These followers engage in extreme actions to destabilize society and systems of power. Personally, I just believe he's just like Khorne with a bit of Tzeentch in him. Hashut, the god of decay, fire, and corruption. Hashut is a chaos god primarily worshipped by the chaos dwarfs in Warhammer Fantasy, though his influence stretches into the 40k universe. He is associated with fire, corruption, and the power of destruction. Hashut represents the corrupting influence of fire and metal, often linked with forge and industry, but also decay and consumption. The chaos dwarfs are the primary worshippers of Hashut. They believe that Hashut grants them the power to control fire and forge metals into powerful weapons, using them to build their empire. Hashut's rituals are centered around forging weapons and the use of fire, often involving sacrifices of vermin or other offerings. The Laughing God, the god of laughter, trickery, and deception. The Laughing God is a lesser-known and enigmatic figure associated with the Dark Eldar. He represents laughter, joy, trickery, and deception, often acting as a patron deity of the Harlequins. The Laughing God's followers are the Harlequins, a group of warrior performers among the Dark Eldar. These followers celebrate the Laughing God through theatrical performances and acts of deception. Rituals often involve elaborate dances, trickery, and the twisting of fate. The Great Horned Rat, the god of Skaven and plague. The Great Horned Rat is a chaos god worshipped by the Skaven, the malevolent ratmen in Warhammer Fantasy and 40k. He is the god of decay, disease, and vermin, and his followers are often those who revel in plague, filth, and corruption. The Skaven are the primary worshippers of the Great Horned Rat, and they believe that the god empowers them to spread corruption and plague. Rituals typically involve sacrifices of vermin, plagues, and dark sorceries designed to increase the Skaven's power and influence. Zufar the Impaler, the chaos god of slaughter and wrath. Zufar is a minor chaos god tied to the concept of slaughter and rage. While considered a servant of lesser aspect of Khorne, Zufar's influence is powerful enough to warrant mention. Zufar's followers are those who seek violent destruction and carnage, often associated with chaos warriors and berserkers. His rituals focus on brutal impalement and extreme violence, with followers seeking to enact bloody destruction in his name. The Red Angel, the god of vengeance. This chaos was bound to show up. There's a lot of bad blood going on across the universe, after all. The Red Angel is a minor chaos god tied to vengeance and wrath. His followers are often those who have suffered personal loss or injustice and seek to enact vengeance against their enemies. His followers are typically those who have experienced great personal suffering or betrayal. Rituals dedicated to the Red Angel often involve bloody revenge, with acts of cathartic retribution being performed as an offering to the god. The rituals and worship of chaos. The Eye of Terror. The Eye of Terror is the most significant manifestation of the warp in the material universe. Created by the birth of Slaanesh, it is a massive warp rift where the boundaries between reality and the immaterium are weakest. Within the Eye of Terror, the Chaos Gods' influence is absolute, and their demonic legions prepare for incursions into the material realm. The Eye of Terror serves as both a gateway and a stronghold for chaos, making it a focal point in the Warhammer 40k storyline. It is the source of many invasions, such as the Black Crusades, led by Abaddon the Despoiler, which seek to spread Chaos's dominion across the galaxy. The Chaos Gods are not passive entities. They actively seek to corrupt and dominate the material universe. They influence mortals in several ways. Their most damning way is the use of temptations. The gods offer power, immortality, and forbidden knowledge to those willing to serve them, seducing them bit by bit before turning them into their servants. To make things even worse, venturing into their territory without ample protection is a really bad move. Prolonged exposure to the warp can mutate mortals, marking them as servants of chaos. It corrupts, and just like they did to Fulgrim when he got possessed by the greater demon that had been sealed in his blade, demons can possess mortal hosts, transforming them into vessels of the gods' will. The gods thrive on mortal emotions, which makes them both creators and destroyers. As long as mortals exist, their emotions will sustain the Chaos Gods, ensuring their eternal presence. Makes you wonder, despite how strong our boys are, do they even stand a chance against these horrors at all? As heretical as it may sound, it's worth considering.